Welcome, everybody. Chapter 7 with the innovative title, God.
Steady on.
Sam, in this chapter, you outline a few characteristics of God's inner Trinitarian life. You use the big word essence, as you have done up so far in the book, and then you flesh that out with words like permanence, depth, and trust combined into the word truth. Let me back up and ask more of a kind of methodological question for this complicated chapter. How can we, or how can you confidently speak of the inner Trinitarian life? Full stop.
I don't think any theologian can confidently speak of anything, really. I mean, it's all inference and speculation. I mean, I remember long ago, 20 years ago, I wrote a book called Power and Passion, which was a Lent book. And my favorite chapter in that was about Mrs. Pilate. And, there is only one verse in scripture about Mrs. Pilate, but I wrote a whole chapter about her.
Mm,
And, one or two people said, well, hang on. But I still think it's the best chapter in the book,
mm,
because what you're doing as a theologian is you're obviously taking scripture, tradition, and reason. You're cherishing them, in two hands, as I would put it, and then you're in a sense waiting while the Spirit does wonderful things with them. And that's very much how I felt when I was writing this chapter, particularly those kind of purple passages, if you like,
mm.
where I talk about how the Father's relationship with the Son is characterized, and then the Father's relationship with the Spirit, and then the Son's relationship with the Spirit, which I think are, yeah, I mean, absolutely, you can say they're speculative, but they're soaked in a lifetime of understanding of human relationships, and most significantly of Scripture and theology and liturgy and prayer. Everything that I am went into those paragraphs, I think. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I mean, what they're not is, a kind of archetypal brackets 1 Thessalonians 4 verse 1 close brackets after every clause. They're
Yeah,
absolutely not that.
yeah,
However, a graduate student, I would challenge, if they particularly wanted to, could, if I ever got to Bart status, as it were, could go through them, and I think would be perfectly able, as I have done actually earlier in this book with the 8 dimensions of being with, find numerous scriptural allusions for every single clause in that, in there. So I'm not defensive about it. I did want
hmm
to do a chapter that is really different to the other 3 chapters in the part 3 of the book, that really peered into the heart of God. And
yeah,
obviously we'll all be wrong about a lot of this come Judgment Day.
sure.
So, let's not get into I am sure of this on the left-hand side, and that's a load of speculation on the right-hand side. Everything is somewhere between those two.
If Nazareth Manifesto is kind of being with facing the people, and constructing an incarnational theology is kind of being with facing God, it kind of feels like, I mean, I don't know if you're okay with that description, but it feels like this book depends on it takes all the work you've done up to this point and says, if you're with me so far, we have to be able to turn all of this language towards the inner Trinitarian relationship and ask ourselves, like, well, does this feel right or not?
Exactly.
And if it feels right, then that's kind of what you're offering is, does this feel right? Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I'm not rewriting the Bible. We already got that. I'm trying to. I think you've expressed it beautifully. I am trying to say, if everything that I've said about the 8 dimensions, about being with as opposed to working for, and so on, what would it be? What kind of language can we put around the 3 persons of the Trinity being utterly with one another? I mean, the controversial part of this, in some ways, actually isn't the speculation as people might think of it, or the fact that I haven't got a scriptural citation for every sentence. It's that it's a very much a social doctrine of the Trinity, and that was very much in fashion when I was doing my first degree in theology. back in the 80s, and remained in fashion probably through to the late 90s, and then went bang out of fashion when the Bartians, if you like, fought back. And now I think I'm very much a minority voice and in danger of being dismissed as a sort of Moltmannian or something like that, because I uphold the social doctrine of the Trinity. I mean, and I'm not giving way on that. So, for example, Edwin van Driel, with whom I've collaborated on so many of these ideas and talked through so much of this, he and I are in different places about the social doctrine of the Trinity. He's a Bartian, more foundationally than I am, and he can't cope with the way I talk about the three persons of the Trinity as three persons, albeit in such close relationship that they are one. So that's in a sense the most edgy thing that I'm doing, probably more than the speculation.
Thank you.
Let's stop there.